Just want to thank everybody. We have our participants here today. George Gluck was supposed to be with us, but unfortunately had a family emergency and could not be here with us this morning. Alexis Goldstein was also supposed to be here with us, so maybe she may be coming a little bit later on. But for our participants that are here, I'll start with A. Mark Wilkes on the end and Ethan Wechteluk. Phonics. Got it.
I think you're the first person to get it just like off.
It's phonics, guys. Awesome. Well, if everyone could stand, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Muscle memory, because I don't know. I've done that in a while. So this morning is more about politics. It's about people. Families working to build stable futures, students preparing for opportunity, and communities across Western Maryland that want to know that their voices matter. District 6 reflects both the strength and the challenges of our region, from affordability and education to healthcare access, infrastructure, and economic growth. Today's forum is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from candidates, not just what they believe, but how they plan to lead and deliver results. Thank you for being here, for staying engaged, and investing in the future of Washington County. Now, before we begin hearing directly from our candidates, it's important that we set a clear structure to ensure this conversation is fair, respectful, and productive for everyone involved. To do that, I'll briefly walk through the format and guidelines for today's forum. So we'll start with each candidate. You will have 5 minutes to introduce yourself and explain why you are the best candidate to represent District 6 at this time. We'll start with A. Mark Wilkes.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is A. Mark Wilkes. The A is not for Apple. Yes.
But the end is for microphone.
Yes. Oh my God, you are so on it. Thank you so much. And good morning, and thank you for coming out. My name is A. Mark Wilkes. I am your neighbor. I live here in Washington County. I'm a business owner and entrepreneur, which is I help other businesses become more stable and economically viable, and I'm going to bring that experience not only to DC, but I would bring that experience back home to you. Thank you.
Can I take it away?
Please do.
All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. So looking out in attendance, I'm reminded that coalitions like this, they don't exist by accident. They exist because people like you have put in their time and talents, organizing, advocacy, and showing up, even when it wasn't easy or popular. I don't take your time or work lightly, and I share in your convictions. And I want to start by offering a clarification. I'm not here because I think I alone have all the answers to the problems affecting our community. I'm not here to treat anyone in this room as a box to check or a group to be won over. Communities are complicated, and so is real leadership, something that's often lacking in Washington. People bring different histories, priorities, and political views, and that's a strength, not a problem to manage. My platform has always been built on 3 core values: affordability, accountability, and community. Our communities can only thrive if we have the political will to make them affordable. This means treating healthcare as a human right and not a privilege, ending corporate welfare, and seeing universal childcare like the necessity it is. This can only happen if our leaders are accountable to us, the people. However, we cannot make life affordable or hold our leaders accountable if we don't have thriving communities. No one is an island, and we're all in this together, and that's why I reject any attempt to divide working Americans who have more in common with each other than they do with the wealthy elites that buy our elections. That same lens applies to our economy. We can't talk about strong families and strong communities if people don't have a stable place to live. Housing should not be a gamble or a luxury. It should be a guarantee. I support large-scale public investment in permanently affordable housing because when people can stay rooted, kids can stay in schools, and neighbors can look out for one another, communities can actually grow instead of being pushed out. Housing policy is community policy. When rents keep rising and nothing else does, it affects everything: health, education, mental well-being, and civic life. Healthcare is no different. I support Medicare for all because I don't think anyone should have to think twice about taking their kid to the doctor or filling a prescription. Healthcare shouldn't depend on your job, your income, or your ability to complete paperwork. A single-payer system is about more than just efficiency. It's about making sure families and communities have peace of mind. It's about knowing that getting sick won't mean financial ruin. None of that matters without accountability. Holding our leaders accountable means rejecting the influence of the Israeli lobby and AIPAC and calling for an immediate end to the taxpayer-funded sale of weapons to the Israeli government, which is committing genocide against the Palestinians. It means holding our Congresswoman accountable for voting for the Lake and Riley Act, which has made our communities here in the 6th District less safe. Accountability means holding our candidates, including myself, accountable. It's also about recognizing that some candidates plan to spend millions of dollars that working people in this district can only dream of, just because they feel entitled to your vote. I intend to earn your vote because this campaign is about each and every one of us coming together to say enough is enough. Because of that, I believe a government of, by, and for the people has a responsibility to help build communities that are safe, affordable, and resilient. That means investing in the things we share, like schools, transits, and parks. It means supporting unions so workers have a real voice. It means creating policies that give people time to breathe, to participate, and to take care of one another. It also means saying no to big tech companies that want to put environmentally disastrous data centers in our communities. These aren't abstract ideas, they're the building blocks of a healthy democracy. And finally, I want to talk about power, because that's what this all really comes down to. Yes, we have to stand up to Trump and the Republican agenda. That's non-negotiable. But we also have to be honest about the ways establishment politics, including within our own party, too often ask communities to show up, be patient, and accept decisions made somewhere else. I don't agree with that. I believe that we are only able to make real change if we act with a sense of urgency in this existential moment we find ourselves in. At a certain point, Trump's reign of chaos will come to an end, but not before real damage has been done to our communities here in the 6th District and around the country. Democrats are going to be asked to offer real solutions, not just Band-Aid fixes to these problems, to our everyday problems. It's important that we do more than just stand up to Trump. It's important that we offer a path forward for this country. If I'm elected, I don't want a relationship to be transactional or symbolic. I want it to be ongoing and real. This means listening even when it's uncomfortable, and especially when it's uncomfortable. I don't expect blind trust. What I hope to earn is something steadier than that. A working relationship built on honesty, respect, and solidarity. Again, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to the rest of the forum.
Thank you to all of our candidates for the opening remarks and for setting the tone for today's conversation. Before we move forward, I do just want to recognize a couple of our candidates that are sitting out in the audience. We have Paul, well, maybe not candidates, but also elected officials. We have Paul Crawford of the City Council of Funkstown. Tom Ruff, who is the president of the United Democrats. And on to our candidates, we have Dave Williams, who is running for county commissioner. We have Eric Van Buren running for District 2 Senator. Running for Board of Education, we have Robin A. Merchant Spickler. And last but not least, we have Seth Funk running for District 1C Delegate. Thank you. Now, we've heard from each of you who is running, and now we're going to take a deeper dive into the issues that matter most to the residents of District 6. Let's move into our moderated questions, where we'll focus on challenges, priorities, and solutions that will shape the future of Washington County. So we'll start with the first question. How does your leadership reflect the core values and concerns of Democratic voters in this district? And what do you anticipate will be the greatest challenge in effectively representing them? I'll start with Ethan since you were first.
I think the greatest challenge in representing the people of this district and in this community is listening. I think too often representatives go to Washington and they forget the people that they represent. They forget who they're supposed to be accountable to. And so a lot of this starts with listening to the communities, listening to the people everywhere. not just in Hagerstown, but in, Clear Spring and other parts, Boonesboro, Keedysville, all of the communities that make up Washington County and beyond. And so that's just critically important, because you can do a lot in Washington, or you can do very little, depending on how you want to approach it. But what you do only matters to the people that you represent if you are there at the beginning to listen to them. So I think that's the critically important step that is too often missing from leadership, and it's also about accountability. It's a two-way street. I listen to you, and then I also expect that you're going to tell me and be honest with me if I mess up. Pick up the phone and yell at me. Send me a strongly worded email, because that's how real stuff gets done. It gets done in the margins, it gets done in the side conversations, and that's what matters. And if that starts to happen for a change, because it's not happened in the 6th District in a long time, we'll start to see real progress and real improvement made that benefits all the communities across the district. Because I want to see, Hagerstown, and I want to see Washington County and all the counties across this district having the opportunity to succeed and thrive.
Indeed, well said. And I agree, listening is not only a priority for leadership, it is the acumen of success for a leader. And we have not had that leadership for quite some time. Now, not to be disparaging to our incumbent or even her predecessor, but I will say this. To lead, you must lead from the front. And in being a leader, you want to coalesce not only the people you are charged with leading, but you want to bring them all together. Members of the community form a common unity. And that is the core definition of what community should be, is a common unity. And that's what not only I represent, I believe that Ethan represents that as well. And I have not only been in talks with Ethan, but also with George. And I have come to the consensus that leading also means sharing leadership. I have been suggesting that we form a Congressional coalition for the first time in history. 250 years ago, gentlemen like Ethan and gentlemen like myself got together in private rooms just like this, and they formed the first Continental Congress. They didn't do it alone. A leader is not a sole entity. A leader is someone who takes on not only the burdens and responsibilities of the people they are charged to lead, but they take on a special part of your life where today it is so important that we choose not only a voice that's going to represent all of us, because no matter what party we're with, our neighbor may not believe as we believe, but that's still your neighbor. And to keep the continuity of the community, we must defeat this thought virus that has been placed upon us. And that thought virus is that we should not talk to our neighbors. I am against that. I am with talking not only to our neighbors. I am going to promote for us to, in this district, form the first Congressional coalition so that we never have this problem again. Because, like I said, leadership really means sharing power.
The yellow?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I was.
The red means shut up.
Well, I didn't know this was 15 or 30.
So 30 seconds,
Got it.
and then this is at your 5 seconds.
Got it, okay. I thank you
Sorry.
for the yellow and the red because I'm colorblind, so those are distinct enough for me to.
Okay.
No, they're good. No, they're good. I'm glad.
So the first time it goes up.
Yes.
That's your 30 seconds.
Thank you.
See
Yes,
how you
yes,
do that
I
right
appreciate-
there?
I appreciate
And
it.
just a reminder, you got 3 minutes. So at 2:30, yellow.
Thank you.
When that other second time, all right. Thank you guys for answering that. We'll move on to the second question. Residents are increasingly concerned about political pressure and decisions that impact vulnerable communities. What assurance can you give voters that you will remain accountable to District 6 and prioritize constituents over political or party pressure? And we're gonna alternate how you guys respond, so.
Good question. I, as an individual, have already displayed not only the capability of getting the job done in Congress, I got it done without being a congressperson. I sued the SBA when Donald Trump was in office. I sued the Trump administration and won. I sued the USDA when the Biden administration was in office. I sued the Biden administration and won. So that the discriminatory policies that have been on the books for decades can be erased, and that individuals like myself who returned home from incarceration can better my life and better my community. I have been not only that template for the last 8 years, I have been inspired by individuals like my friend Eric, who is also a returned citizen. And we are showing that the taxpayers' dollars in incarcerating me, this is your return on investment. I have cleaned up not only my community, I have cleaned up 15 communities across Maryland. I have, in my endeavor to erase these discriminatory policies at the USDA and SBA, created 80 million jobs, opportunities, and visions for those who are criminally justice impacted. That goes a long way, and it was done while I was in my office hoping to make bills and hoping to make inventory and hoping to have my business become something that was worthwhile. And if it wasn't, and I'll admit it, if it wasn't for my congressman at that time, which was David Trone, David back then was somebody I really looked up to. And he was leading in a way that I saw was very good, and it helped my business and helped many others. But what I saw is that that office started to corrupt even him. I seen some things that normal constituents should not see. I was behind the scenes with some of these politicians, and I tell you, some of these environments are toxic to the point where we have to actually ask ourselves, what are we doing? That this is a huge endeavor, not only for an individual, but for our families, that we really mean what we're doing. And I believe in this man, after months of listening to him and reading him, I want to work with you. Alexis is here.
I think some of you in the audience may know me as the person who's shown up in front of the ICE warehouse and waved and other finger gestures at the ICE agents. They don't always deserve a polite gesture. And you've known me as the person who has stood up in solidarity for marginalized communities. That's something that I've always done. I was raised from a young age that when I see an injustice, to speak out for it. I'm proud to be sitting up here with him. I'm proud to know Eric and support the work that they're doing to give people who deserve that second chance a chance to make a difference in our communities. And we're seeing it. But there are so many people who don't have that because their voices are silenced, and they right now are under attack and under threat. I've talked to so many people across communities who said, do I even go to the polls? Is it even safe for me to go to the polls? Is it even going to matter if I go to the polls? And those are people of color, immigrants, young people who feel that my voice doesn't matter. It's never mattered. I voted, look what happened, why show up? And those are tough questions that I've confronted every step of the way, but trying to reassure these communities that you have a voice, that you have issues that matter, that do not be alarmed by the hate any more than the hate is already alarming. I will stand with you. And I've said that to friends in the trans community. You get death threats, I will be right there alongside you. I've said that to friends in the Muslim community. I will be right there alongside you. I've said that to friends in the immigrant community. I went to a nice check-in to someone who was on the path to being detained, and they left with a GPS bracelet. They call that a victory. I still call that a travesty. But I have stood up and said that enough of this is enough. That this is not, I'll use my line that my mother tells me when she gets on the phone and starts ranting, this is not the America that I know. This is not the America that I grew up in, and this is not the America that I was born into. And I feel the same way. Young kids feel the same way. And I'm sure a lot of you all feel the same way. And that has to change. And that starts by putting people in office who aren't going to capitulate just because the party says you should. They're not going to vote for the Laken Riley Act 48 hours in. They're not going to vote to honor Charlie Kirk just because it's politically convenient. I will not play party politics whatsoever. The only party that I'm loyal to is the party in the 6th District. And it's the people like you out here and everyone else across this district that make up that party. And that's who I'll be voting for every single time.
Thank you. I'm going to reread question 2 for Alexis Goldstein. Awesome. Residents are increasingly concerned about political pressure and decisions that impact vulnerable communities. What assurance can you give voters that you will remain accountable to District 6 and prioritize constituents over political or party pressure?
Thank you for the question. I apologize for being late. There was an accident on 70 and I got stuck in it. I'm Alexis Goldstein. It's nice to see you, both of you. Finally meet you in person. So I guess I'll answer this question with a story and then broaden it out. So until recently, I was an employee at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the entity that was created after the 2008 financial crisis so that ordinary consumers have a place to go when their bank fails them or their financial firm steals money from them. We were sort of the one-stop shop. We had a hotline. I was the chair of the LGBT affinity group. I'm gay, I have a wife, I have 2 kids. This is personal for me. I have a lot of queer people in my life. And there were a lot of trans people at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And we actually worked really hard to have the most inclusive, the most expansive transition policy in the federal government. We had signs up by our bathrooms that said, please use the bathroom that is consistent with your gender identity. And when this administration came in the second time, people got scared. And I heard from my people in my affinity group that they were scared that the signs were going to come down and they were scared to use the bathroom because there are a number of trans people who work at the CFPB and almost all of our bathrooms are multi-user bathrooms. So I got busy with my fellow other chairs of the affinity group and members of the affinity group, and we worked with operations. We also worked with there's a group called Pride in Federal Service, and there's a subgroup called the Gender Expansive and Trans subgroup. And I said, help, what can I do? And they said, well, guess what? There's actually a law that says that every single federal building needs to have at least one family bathroom and at least one single-use bathroom. And that was the ask that I had gotten from my colleague, was like, I want a single-use bathroom because I'm gonna be scared to go to the bathroom. I feel like people are gonna be watching me. And so we had gotten so close to pulling that off. They were going to convert 2 bathrooms in the basement to family restrooms, to single-use bathrooms, and then DOGE came to my agency. It was right after USAID was dismantled. We actually were working with USAID workers. They had prepared a whole Google Doc about what to watch out for. DOGE came to my agency. They didn't have CFPB badges. I pulled out my camera. I asked their name and if they had the proper training. And they put me on admin leave for the next year, fired me twice with everyone else, and then fired me a 3rd time this past February. So 3 times the charm. I have always wanted to throw down for other people. I think when we take vulnerable members of our coalition and sacrifice them and throw them under the bus, it shows weakness. I don't think it shows savvy. I have been disgusted by the ways that the Democratic Party has sort of taken advantage of its base, neglected its base. So I will always fight for marginalized communities. I am always eager to work with people who are generally not spoken to. And I'll just close by saying one example of that is our Muslim friends in the Biden administration where I worked were very marginalized and very upset by the genocide in Gaza. And I was part of Staffers for Ceasefire pushing back on that, but I will always be in solidarity with marginalized communities. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. On to the third. Thank you. And on to the third question. Affordable housing is a growing concern for working families, seniors, and young adults. Our communities want thoughtful, responsible development. Before voters cast their ballots, what should they understand about your approach to housing affordability and growth in District 6? And we'll start with Ethan and Alexis, then Awils.
Yeah, I talked about it in my opener about large-scale public investment, but I want to take something that you said about a growing concern. In January 2025, the National Association of Home Builders did a study of District 6, specifically District 6, and the top question that they asked was, how do you feel about housing affordability in this district? 62% said it's a major problem, 23% said it's a minor problem. That's 85%. That is a bipartisan coalition that says it's a problem, and 85% is nothing to sneeze at. So I would say it's not a growing problem, it's a problem that's already here. And it's a problem that many people across our district and our communities have been talking about, yelling about, screaming about, and losing their voice over. And it's time that we start seeing real investment. There's a current bill that's passed the House going back to the Senate that talks about, it's the first housing bill in 30 years. It's progress. But progress isn't enough to make the difference and move the needle. We need large-scale investment in public housing in our communities. We need other pathways to create affordable housing. We need a National Renters Bill of Rights, such that if home ownership isn't for you, and for many people it's not. I am 38, I have never owned a home. I'm likely not going to be owning a home anytime soon. I rent, but I should still deserve protections as a renter. So we need that National Renters Bill of Rights to protect every person in their home, just like if you own your home, you have certain rights and protections. It also means keeping Wall Street out of the housing market. They'll like to tell you right now, well, we represent less than 1% of the overall housing market, which is true, but in some communities, that's not as true. It's higher. So the ability that you go out to buy a home and you have to compete with large-scale entities that can afford to pay cash, no inspections, and they price you out, that's unacceptable. So the housing market has to be fair as well as the consumers. So there's a lot of options that are on the table, but it starts by having the political will and the political desire to make it happen across our communities. And each community is going to be different. What works here in Hagerstown may not work in Frederick. What works in Frederick may not work out in Garrett or Allegheny counties. Vice versa, it might not work in Montgomery County. So we have to think about a comprehensive policy that opens up opportunities for affordable housing to everyone, regardless of their zip code.
Thank you for the question. So public housing in particular is something I've thought a lot about and spent a lot of my career on. Ethan, I agree with everything Ethan said, so maybe I can talk a little bit about policy implementations. So Section 9 of the Housing Act guarantees many things that I think we take for granted. So public housing has become this lightning rod, right? Like the introduction of the welfare queen and this sort of like demonization of people who benefit from public services began, I think, with Nixon and Reagan. It's extremely racist, it's extremely neoliberal, but there is something called the Faircloth limit that is the byproduct of a one-term senator named Lodge Faircloth, whose main claim to fame was he tried to put a bill through the Senate to ban unwed mothers from receiving welfare. And because of Senator Fairclough, there is something called the Fairclough limit, and that caps the number of public housing units that there can be at this country at the 1999 level. Now, the problem is our public housing is in such disrepair that we would be very lucky to get to the 1999 housing level. The last piece of information we have is from 2016, I think it's 2019. There's $25 billion in repairs needed to public housing in this country. Now, even if you don't live in public housing, we all benefit from public housing because it establishes this floor. In Section 9, it talks about you cannot be charged more than 30% of your rent, more than 30% of your income for rent. It also has in the law tenant protections. There has to be an ability for tenants to organize, to have a voice. And so one of the things that we did a lot at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is, rather than trying to push something through Congress, which is extremely hard to do, what are the laws that we already have on the books that we could just enforce? Or we could work with state attorneys general to enforce. And Section 9 is one of those. We've spent over $50 billion on this reckless war in Iran. That's already all of the repairs that we need to all of public housing, and we have $25 billion left. There's obviously more we can do than just that. One of the things we worked at the CFPB was working against these sort of like predatory housing data brokers. One is called RealPage, and what they do is they sort of monitor the local rents and try to algorithmically figure out what is the maximum amount that they can charge you. That is something that the CFPB was investigating. There's a lot of mechanisms within the government if we can get the administration back to look into these. But I think the most important thing is to sort of not put a limit on our imagination, right? Like there are other countries that have large-scale investments in housing, and we could have it too. And the private market has had its chance. I think it hasn't been working, and so I think I agree with Ethan. We need large-scale public investment in public housing, but we also need to use the laws that we already have on the books a little bit better.
Well said. I would hate to get in an argument with you. Yes, as a former property manager, I have experience in this sector. And let me tell you, here in Washington County, property values have not only been so affected by the Trump administration and what they're doing, but it's also being affected by our elected officials who have turned a blind eye to some of the blight and also absentee landlords and absentee property owners who are not taking responsibility for their properties. We need to hold them accountable. We have here, just in Hagerstown alone, huge swaths of properties that can be fixed up. It is my premise that, the predatory people that come in and buy these properties and do the fix and flip and then leave, we have to put some barriers up and some safeguards in that they don't take advantage of the residents and people that live here. It is the same thing with the corporate in the Wall Street, how they buy up huge swaths of neighborhoods. And even now with data centers, farmland is being taken away. Good value land that can be used for agriculture and be used for a variety of in-state resources is now being given away with subsidies. And subsidies is welfare. Subsidies is a welfare that the government gives to corporations. So while they're saying welfare queen and affordable housing, they're getting affordable housing for their institutions, for their detention centers, for everything. We paid for that. All those detention centers and all the housing that is supposed to go up with federal dollars comes from us. So when politicians come into our counties and our municipalities and they're spewing that they're going to bring money, they're going to bring millions, you're telling me you're going to bring me back my money? Yeah, that's all you're telling me, is that you're going to bring me back my money. And this is what we need to do. We need to step up as residents, responsible residents, and call out the blight, call out the missing and broken windows, and call out the everything in our neighborhoods, not just our neighborhoods, but within our entire district. Because as neighbors, and that's where the broken window methodology came from. as neighbors, if you see one broken window and don't do anything about it, guess what? Another broken window. And then another one. And then another one. Soon your neighborhood is full of broken windows and no residents. So we have to be responsible when it comes to affordable housing by making it affordable.
You guys can come a little bit longer. Thank you. That was great, guys. And for everybody with us, listen, sometimes it can get a little bit long, so we just thank you all for your patience as we pass the mic around. Fourth question. Communities across Western Maryland continue to face challenges related to public safety, substance use, and rising healthcare costs. This is a loaded question. How would you improve community safety while also ensuring access to affordable health care, prevention services, treatment, and long-term recovery support? I'll start with you, Alexis, and then you can pass it around.
So I think there are some lessons to be learned from other parts of Maryland's 6th District about what works specifically with substance abuse. Shaming people for their addiction doesn't work. What we have to do is we have to provide people resources. Addiction is a disease like any other, and it requires treatment. Frederick County has a partnership between the library and the Frederick County Health Department that provides a 20-minute free training for anyone who wants one on how to use Narcan or naloxone if you spot someone who may be experiencing an overdose. So you can do it online, you can do it at the library, and then most of the libraries in Frederick County also have a sort of dispenser, no questions asked, it's just like a sort of locker and you can pick up some free Narcan. There's a similar situation here. I've noticed there's like a Narcan dispensary at the Free Public Library downtown. But I think these are the sorts of programs that we need to make accessible to people. I think we have lost too many people to substance abuse, and I think the broader healthcare question comes into play here too, right? Like, how are health insurance companies treating this? Are people being given access to what they need? Do people have a place to live while they are struggling with their addiction, right? Like, this comes back to the housing question. These things are all sort of interconnected. If we are sick, no matter how that may be, right? And I think all of us will get sick at some point in our lives, and probably multiple times. What are the community supports that there are in place for us? Where can we go? Where can we live? Who can treat us? I'm in favor of Medicare for all. I'm in favor of more investment by the federal government into our healthcare systems. I've talked to a lot of nurses in the 6th District, and it seems like there's not a ton of unionization among the hospitals here. I believe there's only 1 or 2 that are unionized. There's also private equity companies that are doing things like gig nursing and sort of taking advantage of the fact that nurses often have really long shifts. And they're like, oh, do you want to just work a 4-hour shift? But then, it's this middleman, and other Wall Street middleman skimming some money off of the top in these gig nursing apps. And so I think there's sort of a combo approach, right? We need more investment from the federal government writ large in healthcare. We need to make sure, with substance abuse specifically, that we do have those prevention and treatment programs, which I think also comes from the federal government. We need to not shame people for being sick. It's nobody's fault when they get sick. And I think we also need to make sure that we are enforcing the law against these sort of predatory companies that are using our healthcare system as a profit center.
Addiction, like Alexis mentioned, addiction is a disease. It's a mental health condition. And that starts by having universal health care, Medicare for all. Full stop. That's a day one priority to me. I spent 9 years working on the Affordable Care Act. I saw the deficiencies, and I am a firm believer in a single payer system that frees up Americans to be able to receive the treatment that they need, whether it's treatment for addiction, whether it's gender affirming care, whether it's just because you have a cold and you need to get it, you're having a baby, or it's end of life care. A universal healthcare system transcends all of those and makes that the pathway to it accessible. Like Alexis said, there's a lot of things that go in the communities. We talk about community safety with this question. I know that in the recent Maryland state budget, our governor planned to increase funding for law enforcement. Look, You send law enforcement into vulnerable and marginalized communities, it's not going to go well. We do not need to be sending more police officers into communities and expect that we are going to get positive returns. What we need are people who are in the community, who understand those communities and can provide the resources and support that those communities need. They are trained to respond to someone who's having a mental health crisis. An officer with a gun should not respond to someone with a mental health crisis. That is going to end poorly. We see it on the news, and so often it's the person who gets blamed. It's not the officer. So it's about investments in our communities, investments in our community systems to ensure that people have the opportunities to get access to programs, to access to services, and access to care that they need. And look, drugs are always going to be there, whether it's opioids, whether it's cocaine, whether it's marijuana, right? But it's giving people the opportunities to receive the treatment that they need and destigmatize it. People turn to drugs when communities and the economy are not there for them. Opioid use started spiking after the 2008 economic crisis. That's not a coincidence. Alcohol use started spiking after the 2008 economic crisis. That's not a coincidence. So if we provide people with stable housing, with stable jobs, with opportunities, they are less likely to turn to substances to fill those voids in their life. But I agree with Alexis, making sure that things like Narcan is available and just destigmatizing across the board. AA is not a bad thing. NA is not a bad thing. But we have to have services in our communities to take care of people and ensure that they can have what they need, and one of those is healthcare. So we must have universal healthcare to take care of everyone, regardless of their needs.
Well said. I have a unique lived experience when it comes to these topics. So I'm sometimes harsh when it comes to public safety. I truly believe that residents must take responsibility for their neighborhoods. We can rely upon law enforcement, but law enforcement is only a responsive entity. They respond. We as residents have to start doing preventive maintenance in our own neighborhoods. When you see something that's about to sprout up, just like a weed, as not only a gardener, but as a farmer, if you allow a weed to sprout up, guess what? It has a lot of little friends with it too. It tells them too, hey, he's not plucking us, come over here. It's the same thing with drug dealers and with crime. If a neighborhood allows it to sprout up, Ridex is not getting rid of that. And it's what happened to Hagerstown. I have been a long resident of Hagerstown. I've seen the change, So many of you have. Where at night it looks like zombie land down here. We are responsible for that. Because we didn't pluck those weeds when we saw them coming up. And now we want to hire landscapers in the form of law enforcement to come and tend our garden. It doesn't happen that way. We have to get in there and get our hands dirty. Seriously, I do it on a daily basis, and my friend here can tell you that I stand on the corner of right here by the library on Cheatham Street, and I tell you, what I see every day, just even at the library, is so sad. So many lives. And it's a good thing that library is there to be not only a place for them to go to receive not only education and help from substance abuse, but they have nowhere to go. Their lives are dismal. We see it every day down there. And this is why access to health care for them and for all is so important. Because I believe that those who suffer from this disease, they suffer from it because they didn't get treatment early on when they really needed it, whether it was mental or physical or even spiritual. The medicine that we all need, we know where to get it. It comes from us. It comes from helping each other and being there in a way that is not only so important now, it's a priority.
Thank you for those responses. And we have one final question for our candidates. Residents are concerned about job opportunities, workforce readiness, and keeping young families in the region. What should voters know about your plan to strengthen the local economy while improving education and career pathways in District 6?
I was loving just launching off of you guys. You're so informed. I'm serious. You're so informed, and it's going to be beautiful. And if I could ever get to work with you, I really mean that. As a businessman, I have not only endeavored to create jobs, not only for myself because I have bills to pay, but also for my neighbors. I really believe in indigenous entrepreneurship and mentorship. And what that means is we have so many young entrepreneurs here in Washington County and throughout the district, but nobody's going to talk to them. I remember when I was one of those young entrepreneurs, nobody was coming to talk to me. I had ideas of getting in business, but I didn't know how. And then I met a gentleman. His name was Raheem, and he showed me how to get into business, but it was the wrong business. At that pivotal moment, I noticed as an adult, while I was sitting somewhere that I did not want to be, that if someone had come to me with a program, a mentorship program, or resources, I would have never spent 20 years of my life in prison. And luckily, while I was spending 20 years of my life in prison, I met mentors who not only meant me well, they put me back on a path of economic viability, education, spiritual awareness, and gave me a mission to come home to become a template to those who really need help. And it's working. As I said before, I sued the federal government twice and won. And in doing so, I opened up economic opportunities for close to 80 million people across this country. And that's everyone that's ever been convicted of a felony, including Donald Trump. And in that endeavor, it not only gave me a purpose in life, it made me become more than what I ever dreamed of. I say it every morning, this is the best I've ever lived. Think about it. I came home from 20 years in prison in 2018, and now I'm competing against a billionaire and a millionaire, because I'm not competing against these people. These are my friends. They showed up today, you know, and I talk with George quite frequently. We text each other from morning to morning while he teaches in school. And let me tell you, I really believe that if we don't get together and let the top establishment know that we mean business, that we are tired of it, we want to work together, that's the only way this is going to work.
This question I know is focused on young people, but I want to broaden it a little bit because I think when we talk about opportunity and access to jobs, to futures, to education, there's three categories I look at. I look at young people, I look at immigrants, and I look at our returning citizens. Because they all are in a place in a position where they're all looking at starting a life, starting a future, starting here in our country. A Wall Street Journal recently put out an article that talked about how career and vocational programs and technical schools, which used to be the pathway to people who didn't want to go to four-year college and be saddled with debt. Well, those are becoming incredibly popular, and people are lining up. They have wait lists, and those places in response have jacked up the rates. And so now people are taking out student loans to go to a technical program that are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That's unacceptable. So for me, part of this starts with free community college and free vocational technical schools. We have to give people an opportunity to learn. You go to K through 12, it's free. So why can't just having a slightly furthering your education, providing valuable skills that will set you up for life, why should you have to pay for that? So those should be free. We should also need to take a hard look at student debt at public universities. There may be a pathway to making even public universities free. But that also comes back to reinvesting in our schools that get people there. K through 12 schools across America, but especially in this district, are underfunded. I know, and as a Montgomery County resident, MCPS is facing a large budget shortfall, and they're considering having to cut programs and cut staff. That is unacceptable, and I know that's something that ripples across the entire district. Schools are underfunded, teachers are underpaid, services. I have 2 daughters with autism. They rely on special education services, and those services are critically important, and those are among the first services that get cut when they talk about ending funding. So we have to invest. We're investing it's not just, don't think of investing in schools, we're investing in our future, we're investing in the next generation. If we can't solve the problems, these are the people who are going to solve the problems. So we need to give them every opportunity that they can possibly have. So that involves, again, but it also goes back to the community aspect. We can give them good schools with well-paid teachers, but the minute that they leave that school, if they're hungry, if they have no place to go, we have failed them. I'm also an advocate of free school breakfast and lunches because those kids should be fed in schools, and then they need community places to go so they don't have to hit the streets, so they don't go home to an empty house, so they have something that makes them feel valued in our society. Because if we do that, then we're going to see tremendous results for the future of our country.
Thank you, Ethan. So there's been a lot of job loss in the state of Maryland. There have been more federal workers who've lost their jobs in the state of Maryland than any other state in the country. I believe it's 25,000 people. And it's not just the federal workers, right? The local governments are under strain because a lot of the federal funding has been pulled back. The educational institutions are under strain because there have been attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, because goodness forbid that we learn things and be awake and not asleep, and examine our history and look at how we can improve it. There has also been a concerted attack on Black women in particular. There are 300,000 Black women who have lost their job in the last year. 100,000 of them are from the federal government, and that is not an accident. They have been very specifically targeted by this administration that wants to send us back 50 years. And so I think when we think about jobs, when we think about people staying in the community, we want to keep young people here, we want to keep old people here, we want to keep Black people here, we want more diversity. I think we need help, right? Education is very important, but we need jobs. And I think the way that we can have more jobs in the 6th district is we need to make different policy decisions. Right now, our federal government is making decisions like spending, I believe it's over $200 million so far on that DHS warehouse that nobody seems to want. They're spending money to give tax abatements to all these data centers that nobody seems to want, and people are doing ballot referendums to overturn. And I spoke in Western Maryland with a young man who was saying that unless the minimum wage goes up, he will remain poor for the rest of his life. He's always been poor. He has, a fiance. He wants to marry her. He wants to have kids. But he's had 2 car accidents, neither of which injured anyone, neither of which, impacted his driver's license. But they raised his car insurance rates, and now he has to pay $800 a month for his car. And he's like, I don't know how I will ever get out from under my car payments. And so I think we need to make different policy decisions. We need the federal government not to enrich the billionaire class, not to listen to these people who shame all of us for not already being rich, and take the funding and do things like expand public transportation, do things like build some housing. Maybe we could have the MARC run on the weekend. Maybe the MARC could run a little bit more during the day. Maybe we could have more investment in free buses. Montgomery County has a really nice free bus system. Frederick has some nice free buses through the transit system. Can we expand that? Can Hagerstown have some free buses? Can Western Maryland have some free buses, right? So these are all decisions, and I think the war in Iran in particular has really laid this bare, right? We will always be able to find $50 billion to bomb people in another country, including an all-girls school where almost 170 people were killed because of a faulty AI system, most of them children. So I think that the way to more jobs is more federal investment in public projects writ large. And thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates for your thoughtful responses and for your willingness to step forward and serve. Since we do have additional time, since all of the candidates are not present, we're just going to take some time to give you 2 minutes to speak on a couple of different questions. And then right after that, we'll invite some of our candidates out in the audience to come and share a few words with us for about 5 minutes or so. But before we transition to that, I do just want to give some context to the question. And I might be out of turn, but I want to make sure that this is meaningful dialogue. That when we talk about young families, we understand that change comes through legislation, and when we don't have a law school anywhere near this district, right, we send our brightest minds outside. And if we don't have solutions to bring them back, if we don't have work for them to do back here, we also leave the people behind who have propped them up and set them up for the lives that they want to create. So just wanted to preface that it's not particularly about young families, but about us receiving a return in investment on the bright minds that grow here. Thank you guys so much. So we'll go start with our 2 minutes. I want you guys to answer this question. Why should a skeptical voter trust you?
Well, I think we all probably have the same answer of I'm not a billionaire or a mega millionaire, and I don't live in Potomac, but that I think is what we all have in common. I have spent decades trying to make the world better. I worked on Wall Street, was my first career, and I worked there before, during, and after the financial crisis. And I remember the bailout, and I remember asking my boss, how will the public ever forgive us for the bailout? This is horrible. And he said, look, when the savings and loan crisis happened, everyone freaked out, everyone was mad, and then it just, some time passed, and it went back to normal, and people forget. And that's what's gonna happen here. And I remember being so disgusted by that answer. But unfortunately, look, most of my adult life has been crisis after crisis. I was in college for 9/11, right? The disastrous war on terror. I saw the financial crisis firsthand. There was COVID. You know, we had a genocide in Gaza that was enabled by the US federal government and the weapons that the government provided to them. And now we have this reckless war in Iran. And then we had the 2 elections of Trump, which were obviously extremely traumatic for many, many people. And I'm reminded of what my boss said to me, right? Like, just don't worry about it. Like, say some words, do some lip service, and it'll all go back to normal. And I don't think that's enough. So I want people to know that I am a person that will always throw down. I don't know if I'll win. One of the biggest issues I've worked on is student debt cancellation. I worked on that for 10 years and convinced President Biden to do it. We didn't. We told him not to do it the way he did it, but he did it the way he did it, and the Supreme Court overturned it. Sometimes you lose, but I think you lose even more if you don't fight. And I will always fight. And so I think I have a track record of that. I'd be happy to talk more with any of you one-on-one, but I'm not afraid of bullies. I'm not very big, but I'm not afraid to fight for myself and others and my family. Thank you.
Growing up, my mom always reminded me of the phrase that the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness will not overcome it. It's incredibly dark right now, but I like to think of myself as this little tiny light shining in the darkness, a little beacon. I pride myself on my values. I pride myself on my honesty, my authenticity, my sincerity, that I'm willing to listen. And I said it in my opening remarks, I'll listen when it's uncomfortable, and especially when it's uncomfortable. That's important. When you send someone, you elect someone, it's about trust. I'm running to earn your trust, and I don't take that lightly. Trust is important. Trust is earned. Trust is not given. I don't expect you to give me your trust, but I do expect to earn it. And I think if I can earn your trust and we can work together, a lot can be accomplished. It's not going to be easy, and I'm not here like a traditional politician that's going to sell you, oh, well, I'm going to get Medicare for all passed in the first week. That's not going to happen. Would it be great? Yes, absolutely. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take persistence. Those are good qualities. My wife says I'm stubborn. You know what? I think what we need is a stubborn politician, but we need a stubborn politician who's going to listen and be stubborn about the right things. You know, you've heard me talk about a lot of things, and I believe those. I say what I say, and I mean what I say. But I'm also willing to have my mind change. If you come to me and say, look, I heard what you said, but what about this? Let's talk about it. Let's engage. Let's listen. Try finding that elsewhere in Washington. You're hard-pressed to find it, and I think that's what I offer.
And like Ethan says, trust has to be earned. And you know, this is something that in my opinion, has been really diluted, not only in this current campaign, but also throughout the electorate. The ordinary citizen has lost trust in the system and has lost trust in elected officials. That's why Donald Trump was able to pull the con man's greatest deal on the Republican Party, because they lost trust in their officials, and he was able to infiltrate in a way that now we're in trouble. Trust and truth are children of the same mother. You cannot have trust without truth. That's why, even with myself, and I tell people my story and how I had a fallout with David Trone. You know, I used to trust him until he stopped telling me the truth. And that's why I actually got into this campaign again, because I was not going to allow him to continue to lie to people I call my friends and my neighbors, when he's not even my neighbor. He's not from this district. They're pulling the Potomac trick, go across the street and use the post office box. That's not trust. That's not truthful. You know? And how can I go back to my neighborhood and ask people to trust me when I was with somebody that's not trustworthy? And that's why I stepped up to not only tell the truth, but to gain the trust of the constituents with who I am charged to be there for.
Thank you all. And then I have one last question for our congressional candidates. Again, you'll all have 2 minutes. Just not necessarily a question, but we would like you to tell the voters what kind of future you want to build for District 6 and how they can trust you to execute that vision. And we can start down.
As just previously spoken, trust must be earned. I envision a future for the 6th district that is not only bright, it's brighter than what we have now. We have a bright future now. You know, there's opportunities now that did not exist before, and we have unique opportunities now. You know, I said to myself, you can't be on one side of the issue without looking at the other side and coming up with a firm decision. So I looked at even things with dealing with the data centers. The data centers are a necessary thing, because if we don't take control of the aspect of them coming into our communities, they're going to continue to just do what they want and buy out our county commissioners and whoever else they can, you know? So it's important for us to be responsible citizens. And in being responsible citizens, this is one of the things, you know, more people, this place should have had a line out the door, and the 2 top contestants for this contest should be here today. They should be here. In the same way that we woke up. Alexis fought coming from New York and fought traffic to get here. You deserve to have your voices heard. And this is what we represent, not just me. This is what we represent. And I'm seeing that here today. I want to work with you. I know I'm not going to win. I cannot say that for these 2 individuals, but I know with the climate with what it is and with the resources and the limitations that we have, if we don't bond together, they're going to do it again. April's going to win. Okay? April's going to win. But we have to make her responsible to us as well.
For me, what I see in vision for this is a lot about who's on the other side of that camera watching right now, which is my kids. I have a 4-year-old, I have a 9-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and then my wife, Courtney, who's out there. And I know many of you may have kids, grandkids, cousins, nieces, nephews. And when I sit up here, I think about my kids, I think about those kids, I think about all of you, and I think about the opportunity. I think about the kids who were born into a zip code where they don't have the same opportunity that my kids have because they're born into Montgomery County in Clarksburg. They don't get to go to the same schools. They don't get the same opportunities and educations. I think about my Muslim friends who receive massive amounts of hate. I think about my trans friends who are told and ridiculed. I think about, people who are pushed to the edges of society. And we have to stop that. Those people are under assault for who you love, for what you look like, for your religion, for anything. That is unacceptable. It is patently unacceptable. And our community should not be like that. So when I think about what I want this community and what I want this district to look like, it's that you can be anything. That's every kid, every individual, whether they are fresh off the plane from another country or just born into a hospital. They know that they have the same opportunity and the same chances to succeed and maximize their value. We can get there, but it takes real conversations, real investment, and the political will and the political capital to make it happen, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table.
What is the future you want to build for Maryland 6, and how can people trust you to build it? I have an affirmative vision. I think we all know what's wrong. But what I want to do is I want to redirect funding away from violence and war and the attack on all of us by our own government and towards the care economy. I, for better or for worse, think like a money person because I spent 7 years on Wall Street, and the way that you change things is you move the money around, you reallocate it. One of the pieces of legislation that I have worked on in the past with AOC before I was in government was a bill, it sounds so cute, it's called family offices. What that is billionaires' personal investment funds. We hear a lot about private equity. There's $4 trillion in private equity, and they're wreaking havoc on us. There's $6 billion in private family offices. So think about Elon Musk's personal piggy bank, Jeff Bezos. We don't know what they're doing with it. No financial regulator has any oversight into what family offices invest in. So there's a $6 billion black hole. So there is a piece of legislation that I already worked on with AOC. It's already been written. That is one of my main goals to accomplish. Because look, we have 3 steps, right? Find the billionaire money. We don't know where it is. Take the billionaire money back and give it back to us. Because it's our money. It was always our money. The other thing is to make these happen, like has already been alluded to a lot, one person is not going to be able to change this entire system. We need a community. Everything worth doing is done together with other people. So one of the things that I've done is I've worked in coalitions. For 6 years, I worked at Americans for Financial Reform. It was a coalition of unions and small businesses and economic justice organizations. I know how to build a coalition to get things done. I know how to work with local organizations. That's what I've been doing this whole campaign. It's the best thing about campaigning. I get to meet all the amazing people like you in this room. I get to meet all the organizations that are already doing things. So the way we build our affirmative vision and make it happen is we listen to what everyone is already doing and where they need help, right? Where do you need me to walk a picket line? I see the red card, so I will stop there. But I really think that I've been inside these systems. I know where the wires are. I know where to cut them and rewire them to make them work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you all so much, and I do just want to point out the spirit of collaboration between you all. I agree with you that it is important that to step forward in what is available to us in District 6, that we must all work together. So I thank you all for that spirit of collaboration as we move forward into the primaries coming up here shortly. So as we transition, I'm just going to call it in order of the way the names are listed. We'll start with our County Commissioner, Dave Williams. If you could just come up for a few minutes and just give us a few words and tell the voters why they should vote for you.
How much time so I know the cards? What do you need? 5 minutes?
I'll be shorter than that.
Hi.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. It's especially nice to see people who aren't actually candidates here. So it's good to see you. It's been 20 years since we've had a Democrat in the county commissioner position. And I think this year, if change is going to happen, this is the year it's going to happen. This is almost a perfect storm of political opportunity for the county. And it's up to those of us in the room to make that storm come to fruition with change. So that's what I'm here on today. I'm asking you to help out. I know the 5 of us who are registered Democrats who are still active in the race, we're going to be working hard. We also have an unaffiliated candidate who might be on the ballot. She's going to be working hard. And for once, the fate of the county commission is not going to be decided by the primary results. And I think some of the current Republican commissioners are under the assumption that the race is over with the primary. I think they're in for an awakening. So I know I'm going to work hard for it, and I'm going to ask you all to work hard to make that happen too. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dave. All right, next we'll have Robin Merchant Spickler running for Board of Education.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out on such a dreary kind of weekend. Appreciate everybody here. Wish there were more. So we got to get the word out. I'm running because I am an experienced teacher of Washington County. I've taught here for 44 years, mostly kindergarten. This is my home. I've lived here all my life, grew up here. My whole family went to public school. My only daughter went to public school, and now my 3 grandsons go. And I have the experience that I want to bring, and I want to put that back into my job as a board member, bring the board back to reality. I don't have an agenda. I'm not going in there with what I want to do. I do want to learn. I do want to find out. I want to be able to invest my time that's going to benefit the students, the teachers, and the stakeholders. I am committed 100% plus. Anybody who knows me, I don't give up easily. I'm in there for the long haul, and then people get tired of me and they're like, but you're always here. But I will be. I will always be here, and I'm still here, even if it doesn't happen. I also, like I said, I'm invested. My 3 grandkids are my best thing ever, and I want to make sure I came through school. I'm out of 5 in my family. I'm the only one who's got a degree, and I make less than anybody else in my family. And that's, I put myself through school. And my twin brother, he was a millionaire. He learned by doing. But my sisters, they all didn't have degrees. And my other brother, but I'm the only one with a degree, and I made less than they do. So I'm committed, I'm invested, I'm experienced. The board, it got ugly 2 years ago, and I think that, like Dave said, this is like the perfect storm. There are only 3 seats, but there are 4 great Democratic people running, and we've got to do it. That's all I got to say. We got this. Okay?
Thank you, Robin.
Can you have a shout out for her hair?
As you will, Robin.
That's amazing.
And I have a salon, and I was like, look.
My husband says the same thing, it won't stay in.
We'll bring up Seth Funk, who is running for District 1C, the delegate.
Angela will be those cards. cards because I didn't prepare any remarks, and I tend to get long-winded when I don't have those prepared. Yeah, no, I'll try to be brief. I want to say thank you to the candidates that came here. I mean, unfortunately, two of the big ones couldn't show up, but I'm rather for the ones that actually do show up to these things. I don't care how small events are. I think that if you're running for public office, you need to approach every voter as if they are the one that's going to win you the election. Sorry if you heard the crinkling of wrappers. Paul and Lindsay were back there laughing at me as I tried to desperately open up a muffin without interrupting this event. I'm running because, frankly, I'm tired. As Dave said, it's been 20 years since we've had a Democrat on the county commissioners. It's been even longer since we've had one in my seat. The last one was made on the ballot. Before that, a Democrat didn't even run. It was just a green. And the district shows for it. Well, entirety of Washington County shows for it. Bills skyrocketing, housing costs skyrocketing. I'm 28 years old, I have a degree, and I'm certainly not using my degree for what I got it for, except now. I got a theater degree and associates, and now I'm running as a politician. See there? I do have a bachelor's in public policy and political science, don't worry, I'm more qualified than the theater degree would say. But no, I'm tired. I'm tired of our district being written off. It's a Republican writ large. I'm tired of us being ignored. I'm tired of the people that come in and run in these seats and represent us doing nothing to actually better our lives. My opponent, for instance, he was in the House of Delegates for 4 years. He has 2 bills. And neither of them passed. Nothing to do with economics, nothing to do with any of the issues that have been facing us, nothing to do with infrastructure. I don't even think he went out to the Allegheny County when they had that flooding to actually see what happened. That was all other candidates. And yet he's thinking that he's just going to get elected because he went and runs in a red district. So I'm running to make our district actually affordable for young people, to bring it back, to make it a place where you can live, where there's jobs, where there's housing, where there is infrastructure, where there is an actual place to live rather than whatever Republicans like to think that they've built. So, as I said, I'm not going to get too long-winded. I'm going to try and keep this manageable, but happy to talk with you after this. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Seth. And last but not least, we have District 2 Senator candidate Eric Martin Van Buren.
As I stand here and I talk to you guys, I'm blessed. Like Mr. Wilkes says, I'm a returning citizen. So I got into this race because for all of my life, politicians came into my community who looked just like me and promised me the world and did just the opposite. So they came in here and they lied to us. And then after they lied to me, their policies helped ruin my life. Right. So when I got up here, I was going into the prisons. I'm a founder of a nonprofit. I was going into prisons, teaching cognitive behavioral therapy, and the contract that I had went away because of this administration. I met the president, had a meeting with the president of the NAACP, and I had reservations against the NAACP because of the mass incarceration thing. But I met her, and when she talked to me about running, she talked to me about the incumbent that I'm running against. And he sounded just like all the politicians in my life that came, promised something, and did the exact opposite. So I said, you know what, I should go ahead and run. I'm a returning citizen. I'm the dark horse. I'm gonna run, right? Kind of like put my thumb in their face. But then I started thinking, man, can I win? I'm very competitive. But then I saw that almost 17,000 Democrats didn't participate in the last midterm. That's right. And I said, hold on, this ain't about him, right? It's about us, right? And this is why you see some of my videos and I say, don't make it about me. because I got in this race because I didn't like politicians who looked just like me. So it can't be about me. I started meeting people like all these people on this panel right here, and Seth, and other politicians, Dave, and people in the community, and everybody was saying the same thing. I even met Republicans that are running that say the exact same thing. Everybody's tired. And it's all across the board. It's not just here in Washington County, it's everywhere. But when I see it in Washington County, it's so familiar. And then Bill Gertner told me one day, because I was just asking him, like, everybody say, I'm not from here, he's not from here. And he said, Eric, you grow where you're planted at. All right, the yellow card. All right. So I'd like to thank our panel today. I'd like to thank it's Memorial Day weekend, so all the veterans that served. And I want to make this whole race about you and not about me. That's why I'm running.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to all of the candidates that have come up here and shared a few words with us. This is a really important election, as is all. And one sentiment I want to draw on is about what we grew up in. And I think the one thing that we share now is that a lot of marginalized communities have felt this pressure. And we now have people kind of catching up to where these communities have been. They were born into an America that did not serve their best interests. And now we all share that. So in the spirit of being neighborly and not just political, I do want to just thank you all for sharing your experiences and sharing in our concerns and our issues, not just for District 6, but it sounds like you all share that for this nation as well. So I do want to thank you all for that. And before we close, I just want to leave you with this, that everything we discussed here matters. And it only matters if we turn it into action. I know that this room is full of voters. And that means that the power to shape the future of District 6 is already here. Elections are decided by those who show up, those who stay engaged, and those who bring others with them. So as you leave today, don't let this just be a conversation. Let it be a commitment. Not just a commitment to vote, but to stay informed, to talk to your neighbors, and to keep building the kind of community that we all know Washington County can be. So thank you all again for being here, and thank you for being engaged. Let's go out and make this election count. We still have some time, so please stick around, network, and I implore you all to send questions to these candidates that are running. Get to know them a little bit better. See how you can support them. Share their content. Give them some of your ideas. And we thank you. Hopefully talk to you all at the next event.